Welcome to Design Build Your Hawaii Home. Today I have Richie Bro, owner of All Things New, and Andrew Foreman, owner of Blueprint 808. Richie is a professional builder and contractor. Andrew is an architect. This dynamic duo have been working together to revolutionize the design build process. Today we're going to be sitting down with them and talk through that process and everything that homeowners should know. So, Richie, share a little bit about your background and why you started All Things New.
First, I want to say thank you, Carolyn, and Hawaii Home Remodel magazine for allowing us this opportunity to share. All Things New birthed about 10 years ago. I've been living here for about 20 years, being a Hawaii carpenter. Love working on homes and different things. It started, I would say, my commercial background experience here when I first started doing construction. Really enjoyed working here on the island, meeting new people, got a lot of experience in. But in 2008 and 2010, there was an arena of work slowing down in the commercial world due to a lot of the economic crisis across America. And I got laid off for the first time. During that season in 2010 was a great opportunity to, work for friends and family and different people and do like kitchen remodels, bath remodels. Nothing we were charging. It wasn't really a company thing then. But during that season, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what the current market was like and what contractors are doing in the market at the time. And we learned that there were a lot of scams, contractors bullying, stealing homeowners into projects. The quality wasn't there. And learning this with some very, close relationships of friends that I had really stirred up something in me and my wife's heart to create a business and start a business that could rise above that and create a new standard in Hawaii. That standard being specifically raising the notch in quality, efficiency, and also, and most importantly, integrity. And All Things New bird, just to be something new for the homeowners, something fresh, something that's a breath of fresh air, a company they could trust, and ultimately trying to set a standard across the board on the island that other actors and companies will have to live up to. And that's what All Things New is. That's the heart behind it. And just been a fun journey. And I think a little bit of our success is a testimony of the need in Hawaii for a company with professionalism and that integrity standard.
So Andrew is your partner at this elevated level, this integrity standard, and his story is fascinating. So, Andrew, can you share a little bit of your story and the idea behind Blueprint 808?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of Richie's story and my story actually run in parallel. So I've been out here for just about 20 years as well. Originally came out here to go to the architecture school at UH. And enjoyed that. Had some family that actually had designed and built their own home. My uncle was an architect on the Big Island, so that's what sort of drew me out here. But right out of college, much like Richie, I ended up working for one of the largest firms in the state and did all sorts of good work, cool projects. But they weren't projects that I was really, I'd say, passionate about. They were, commercial projects and, institutional projects and projects outside of Hawaii. So after about 10 years of working there, I actually worked for a builder for 5 years, which was eye-opening. And it was definitely the other end of the spectrum from sitting in an office and doing design work, but it was like equally important to creating beautiful projects. So after doing that for 5 years, that's when I decided that I was going to start Blueprint 808. And it was really, utilizing what I had learned through both of those experiences professionally and then obviously in college. And realizing that it was going to be a focus on architecture, but producing the projects was going to be a focus on working with builders from the very beginning. So Richie and I, we met several years ago and we hit it off. And then, one project turned into another. And now we've completed 30-40 projects together. So,
and I mean, I know the story behind it, but it is amazing. I mean, we're on an island. We're all going to run into each other, but how did you and Richie actually come together and meet and decide we're going to go through and do this together?
I don't know if he's Instagram famous or we are, but that's actually where we met. We're Instagram buddies. So we were messaging each other back and forth. I think he actually reached out to us first and just was like, hey, you know, you do awesome work and check this out. Kind of one of those networking things and looking at each other's work. And finally, we were able to sit down and have lunch, and just kind of a backdrop of us and the company. You know, we're always scratching the island and the surface of the island, looking for the best partnerships as possible, looking for companies that are in line with our heartbeat, the integrity level, the standard and quality and awesome work we want to produce, but also have a passion for homeowners and, you know, getting things built. So when I actually was able to sit down with them at lunch, and I was like, wow, finally, you know, having somebody that gets that there's a heart behind this, especially the homeowners. And that was the disconnect between the commercial world and doing what we do now. Is there has to be a care involved, a passion involved in what we do, and having the team and building the team around you at every degree is very important. And just meeting Andrew just solidified that that there are companies out there that believe in the same vision.
No, I love it. And for anyone who hasn't seen their Instagram, it's definitely worth a follow. But we're here today to talk about the design build process itself. And for the people watching, please explain why well, you could, but why you maybe wouldn't go to a contractor and just say, hey, I want a home, just build a home for me. Just walk me through the design build process. And I'm going to start with Richie, and then we're going to go follow up with Andrew.
We get a lot of requests where we get an email of some already designed plans. We open them, we're super excited. We give an estimate, we go to the home, we meet the homeowners, everything looks great. But then once they've seen the price and the cost involved, they got to work backwards. Hawaii is expensive in a lot of degrees. There are methods that we can use to definitely have cost savings. We work really hard for those, but we're not in the beginning process of that as a builder. It makes it difficult because all we have is the end result of what's already designed. So statistically, which this is a crazy statistic, 9 out of 10 of those don't get built from us. Moving forward into the design build process, that statistic has dramatic to we build 9 out of 10 now. So I think it's very important to just, you know, understand that how this process is, and as we share more about it, to really tune in to how us as the builder can be involved with the designer during this process and hopefully get you something built.
So Andrew, I mean, from your perspective, please share the design build process, you know, itself.
Yeah, sure. So the reality is the traditional way of building a home, or that be it any sort of building, is to design it first. Once you're complete with the design, you take a package of design documents and then you hand it off to a handful of builders who will then bid on that project. And then one of those builders is awarded the project and completes the construction portion of it. So when Richie mentions that throughout this process, a lot of the designs that are created aren't ever actually built, that's the experience that I went through working for the big firm. We followed that traditional process. And after a while, it just became obvious and quite frankly, a bit frustrating. And there seemed like there had to have been a better way to complete this. So the better way is, instead of doing it piece by piece, you do it with everybody involved from the beginning. And Richie has mentioned this before, but where, you know, in the traditional process of designing it, bidding it, and building it, all the projects that get built or designed, only 10% get built. In our process, 90% of them get designed, get built. So it's just having all of the important, valuable people that understand all of the parts of the process in one room from the very beginning, and all of those same people in the house when it's completed at the very end.
I mean, That is just such an amazing statistic to think that all of these drawings are being created, and then once you get to that bidding process, you end up, recoiling in horror at the price, and then it goes back to the drawing process again, and just this ping-ponging back and forth seems like such a waste of time. So with this design build
You
process,
nailed it.
it's so much more integrated. So I guess I'd like to know from the builder side, how are you involved in the design build process itself? And then how is the architect involved in the design build process? So Richie, I'm going to throw that at you first. What is your involvement?
Our involvement from the beginning, I think the key thing to identify first is the cost. Well, once you develop an idea, the dream, or what you want to do, what we call the scope of work, can a builder project honest, real good, strong numbers from the beginning? And that is very important as a builder to be involved in the design build process, is being able to present some honest costs from the beginning and basically use that to tailor the homeowner in the direction of the design. Because what we don't want to do is design Disneyland and learn that prices of the realities, when we can work through the process as a builder and a designer, giving construction input to save costs, keep plumbing elements in certain places so we can save 10,000 here, 5,000 here. I think that input is so valuable in the design process to keep you almost like in a cost check, just keeping you in the lane where you need to be, and arriving at that and designing at that. To do is design something that's not going to be built. So the whole intent is understanding the budget from the beginning, understanding the cost from us as the builder, and presenting those early and throughout the process in pieces that are chewable. So at the end, you're not choking on a steak. You have little pieces cut up that you can chew on and enjoy.
No, that's a great analogy. And Andrew, I mean, for you in the process, because it's constantly evolving, what does that look like for you as an architect?
Yeah, so I mean, a big part of this is when we go through the process, really what we're allowing the homeowner to do is be educated on all of the different variables in their project. So instead of being sort of tunnel vision towards design, throughout the entire design process, we are looking at design, simultaneous to looking at budget, simultaneous to looking at schedule. So they can understand all of those variables. And the reality is, as an architect, my forte is to focus on the design element. So really implementing the builder who understands the costing of that, the scheduling of it, and then any of the other logistical parts of putting a home together. That's allowing the homeowner to be informed and educated to make the proper decisions before they ever start building anything, before they ever start permitting anything for that matter. And it's every step of the way. So the right way to do it is you'll have milestones throughout the design process where you'll say, okay, at the very beginning of the process, what are our targets that we're trying to achieve from a design, a budget, and a schedule standpoint? About halfway through the design, you guys sit down as a team and you make sure that you are on target for all of those different objectives. Then about 75% of the way through, you sit back down as a team and make sure you're still on target. And then finally, by the time you're done with design, there's no surprises. You haven't over-designed this and under-budgeted. You've designed it to your budget. So it's actually a very seamless process. It then moves into the permitting, moves into the construction. And because we've all been a part of the team from the very beginning, when we get into construction, guess who's still there? Me. And I'm just there to assist the builder and assist the homeowner as an advisor and allow them to make sure that everything that we set up for in the design process is ready to implement in the construction process.
So you've already touched on this, but I really want to dig deeper into the benefits of working with a design and build team like you both. So what are the benefits of doing this versus the old traditional way? I'll go ahead.
I would love to elaborate.
Yeah, go for it, Richie.
Yeah. My favorite as the builder is building the relationship with the homeowner and designer. Traditionally, you get plans, you give a bid, say if we do get the project, we don't know the architect, or we could. We get to meet the homeowner and then just jump right into construction. During this, I think the deeper benefit for us is we get to really sharpen our pencil through the design process, come up with the most accurate and competitive pricing, but also we get to build a relationship with the homeowner. We get to create some kind of communication flow that we can really tighten up before construction starts. So when construction begins, we already have our channels and everything, how we're going to operate as far as the communication wave throughout the process. And then, you know, it's just, our goal is to build not just clients, but ultimately friends. And I think this process helps that, just going from the beginning, having fun, hearing the behind the scenes from the homeowner, why they want to build what they're building or renovate what they're renovating, and getting the backdrop from them really inspires the passion from us. So that is a deep benefit for us as the builders, just being able to be part of that whole journey from the beginning.
No, absolutely. The relationship, it matters. You're spending a lot of time, and this is the biggest investment for some people of their lives. And for you, Andrew, I mean, what are really the benefits?
Huge.
What are the benefits?
Yeah, I mean, I can just sort of piggyback off what Richie just said, but if I was to go back to that traditional process of designing something and then bidding it and then eventually building it, inherently going through that process, what ends up happening is you sort of put the designer and the homeowner on one side of the court, and then you've got the builders on the other side of the court. You're sort of playing, you know, a game of table tennis until you guys figure out who's on the same page. But you know, that feels almost divided or separated from a certain perspective. And for a single family home, for something that's residential, you just said it. You know, these are the biggest investments in, you know, potentially someone's life. So it doesn't want to be so much of a competition and, you know, somebody wins the bid and now they're hoping that they complete it for the lowest price. It doesn't need to be that way. I can tell you based on experience working on all single family homes in a similar location in Hawaii with similar builders, oftentimes the only difference in the price points are how educated the builder is on your project. They have more contingencies. They have more margins, so they have to add a little bit of wiggle room so they don't lose any money themselves. But if you really understand comprehensively what the goals of that homeowner are, what their scope of work is, then that builder can really hone in and sharpen their pencil to give you the most accurate estimate. And when they build it, you have confidence that they understand what they're building, why they're building it, and, you know, all the other variables that go with it. So it's much more of a trusting process, you know, a teamwork process, less division, more simultaneous work.
No, it just sounds so much more cooperative. And I mean, you talked about the table tennis issue with the design and the bidding in the traditional format, but let's talk about timelines. I mean, how long does the typical design build process normally take for you both? And I'm talking about creating the basic design all the way through to I have keys in my hand.
Sure. So from a design standpoint, we'll break it into a few phases. So the first phase is really programming for your house, understanding the big parts and pieces. In our process, that'll take 4 weeks. So we hold 4 meetings over 4 weeks, so a total of 1 month. Then we'll have that milestone meeting that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Sit down as a team, understand all the different variables before we take it into the next step of the process, which will develop the designs for each particular area of the home. And that will take another 4 meetings held once a week over 4 weeks. So by the time you've had 8 meetings in 8 weeks, you've got a comprehensive design. Over the course of the next month or so, we'll actually turn all of our design documents into permittable city documents, and then we route it through the city. So if you're working with a designer, an architect that has a lot of expertise working with the city, and again, I think this is a very important part of this, is make sure that whom you're working with is well-versed in that particular type of project. If they work on those type of projects and they work with the city a lot, they'll be able to efficiently go through the process in permitting. And for our part of the process, that will usually take 3 months. So about 6 months into the design and the permitting portion of the process, you will have designed it, you'll have it permitted, and then you'll also have procured all your materials. So you'll be all set to start construction, and that's where you hand it off to Richie.
Yeah, so I really love this process because it really helps us schedule and plan things ahead of time and pan out the work accordingly to the homeowner's availability. During the design phase, like Andrew just capitalized on, is typically 3 months. Depending on how small or big it is, it's the same process. So the time frame is usually consistent, which is very efficient. I've seen and heard of architects designing things taking about 6 months to 2 years. I don't know, can't even fathom how it takes that long sometimes. But 3 months is amazing. It's efficient. Getting it into the city and county, which is and also turnaround time that's been very consistent in the past 2 years with Andrew. It's 3 months to get an approved permit. Not anything we can promise, but that's been the standard and very typical. And he's been great at his response rates and how he gets that turned over. So that allows us as the builder within that 3 months to prepare our proposal and our contract, get it to the homeowner, because we're not even committed as the builder yet. That's another amazing part of this process is the commitment levels to the designer at first. We help and invest in the cost estimates throughout the process of design. But until it's ready to be submitted to the city, at that point, do we send our actual contract and proposal for signature. So it's a low risk opportunity. But once you sign with us as the builder, at that point, we can provide whatever documentations we need for the city and county to Andrew to make sure that flow goes really well. But during that 3 months, we can go shopping for finishes, purchase big ticket items that could be shipped in to take 8 to 10 weeks coming from the mainland, like doors and windows, cabinets, certain type of fixtures like tubs. We can get all those orders in and we can already effectively create what's called a start date and put it in the future in 3 months. So typically you'll have 3 months of design, 3 months of permitting, and then we could start construction and start moving forward. Depending on the scope of work and size of the project, I typically say with our size of projects we work with, we can turn projects around in like 3 to 6 and potentially 8 months turnaround. And those are like your 400 to 800 square foot additions to 3,000 square foot brand new homes. So we have a really good and efficient process from design, permitting turnaround, and also construction.
No, and I will take a moment just to acknowledge Andrew and Andrew's great success in actually navigating the permitting process. I mean, I have heard horror stories, but I've never heard horror stories affiliated with your name. You seem to be a pro in navigating the permitting process and doing it in a timely manner. But I guess while we're on the topic, what are the factors that can contribute to making the process take longer? Delays. Let's talk delays. What are those things that will really impact the timeline on a project?
Sure. I'll start then. From a design standpoint, what I always preface whenever I meet a homeowner that's going to do a project is I tell them that they're going to take a master's class in designing their own home for the course of 8 to 12 weeks. So they need to have time that they can invest emotionally, mentally, and a bit of homework going through the process. Obviously, we're going to be picking out materials and making decisions that are going to impact our life greatly. So I don't want to call it a delay, but sometimes getting started, people just need to be prepared. So before you ever get started, make sure that you have the time to invest in doing the project. As far as the design process itself goes, very little delays. So as Richie had mentioned, doesn't matter the size of the project or the scope of the project, the process always remains the same. There'll always be those 8 meetings followed by a month to create our permit documents. Once it's into the city, it's interesting because a lot of people give the city a really hard time for the permitting process, and it can be challenging, but the reality of that is that it's up to your architect or your designer to make sure that what they submit to the city is exactly what the city needs and nothing more, nothing less. So when you make it to the city, you give it to them, and it's simple for them to understand, review, and approve, which is the whole idea here. So it'll go into the city, several departments will review it, they'll give you some comments back, and as long as you can efficiently respond to those comments and give it back to them, that will make the whole process efficient, and hence that 3-month timeline. That can cause delays if you don't do it properly. If you don't show the correct information to the city and county, to the Department of Planning and Permitting, that will slow down the permitting process. If you don't know the responses to the examiner's questions or comments that they have for that designer, that will slow down the process. So it's a critical sort of just understanding of what the city needs to see. And then you can start to overlap things. If you give the city their specific documents, and then you don't worry about what our cabinets look like or our tile work looks like. You can work on those simultaneous to the city worrying about what they need to worry about, which is safety and our land use and things like that. So we'll be able to do things efficiently and simultaneously rather than very sequentially. So from a designing and a permitting perspective, most of it should be under your control. The biggest variable would be just make sure you're ready and you have the time to invest, and make sure that whomever you work with is experienced and knows exactly who needs what information.
No, that's great. That's great. And Richie, I mean, what are the impacts on the build side? What can cause delays?
Yeah, I love Andrew's famous saying he always shares with homeowners when we're conducting an in-home consultation. He says, when you're ready, buckle your seatbelt. We're ready to rock and roll. We're gonna be going at a very fast pace, but a lot of it's based on the partnership from the homeowners as well as us. So we're going to put everything out there, all the options. It's just making those choices so we can move forward to the next step. In the builder side and the construction side, permit delays are a big one. Materials not being available or delayed in shipping, and communication flaws. I think those are the three big construction delays, but we have an answer for all of them. We have Andrew for our permits to get those going through. But permits are out of our control, out of even Andrew's control, but there are a lot of things, like you said, and elaborate on, that we can do to expedite those. Material delays, I think our answer to that is taking advantage of the time the permits are being in review. We start shopping for things that are going to take about 2 months to get here from the mainland. And we do have the warehouse capability to store these things, get them here, not worrying where we're going to put them because we're not going to start the project yet. So homeowners can have a safe place knowing All Things New has a warehouse space to receive it, store it, check it, and get those things here and ready. So when we start framing a house, and it's time to install doors and windows, we could put those in so we can move forward with completing siding and roofing and certain things. So there's certain components that have to happen in a row, but taking advantage of this process and the timing of everything, the answer is shopping for those certain things, the time we're waiting for the permit. And then the communication flow. Being able to homeowner make decisions with the homeowner as a contractor or a builder is very important. And we work really hard to manage expectations through the process. We do have an online portal that we provide for homeowners. It's kind of like their own website to the project, where they can have full access to a live schedule that constantly gets updated, and it's just constantly showing what happened and what will happen, painted all the way to the end of the project so you can see the end date, and just constantly being able to see that. We upload pictures every day. We send messages, have one meeting a week with the homeowner. Every project has an assigned project manager. And these kind of things are the answer to communication flaws. Being able to change orders is a big one. What happens if I want to move a pendant light over or add a third pendant light that wasn't original contract? That online portal is a place where the homeowner can look. We can share the cost. Oh, it's $125 to add one more pendant light. They can approve, and it can happen pretty much 5 minutes later while we're in the field. So everything is kind of online nowadays, a little bit more tech involved, but it helps the communication so we don't have those flaws or communication interruptions through the process.
I'd like to add one thing to that, if you don't mind. So, sorry, just one thing. But the reason for the efficiency of the process and the modern techniques that we're using are all based on the flaws in the traditional way of doing things. So, Richie says he's got portals. A lot of our meetings are done via Google Meeting, especially important nowadays, right? So the majority of our meetings are done just like we're on here today. We're sharing everything digitally. Everyone can access their blueprints immediately online. Everyone can see what their house looks like in 3D immediately. So it's solving these problems that people have traditionally had. Everyone can know exactly what their budget is throughout the entire course of design and construction. So we've just identified what those problems were, and we found easy ways to solve them.
No, you both sound like master time managers and master communicators, but you did touch on that one thing at the end. And I guess my question is, timeline is a factor, but so is budget. So how do you provide accurate estimates for your clients through the entire process?
We use our online portal called BuilderTrend to record data and collect data from all our workers, all our subcontractors, and every project we work on. So our workers actually clock in and cost code what they did for the day, 16, 2 hours trim, and whatever we did. We correlate those with the actual square footage or linear footage of the project. And over the years, we've taken that data, correlated it with the actual project linear footage and everything that we have through all the projects. And now we've understand what are our costs as ATN to frame a wall, to install drywall, to paint. And we've taken all this data and we've learned our carpenters aren't the greatest painters when it comes to efficiency, so they cost a little bit more. So now we're able to subcontract certain things out, save the homeowner cost, but also bring in a professional painter, and that's all they do to do the work. So we've been able to take all these costs and even take it to another scale of understanding cost per square foot when it comes to additions, when it comes to remodels, when it comes to doors and windows per cost per square foot, when it comes to roofing. So we've created an online calculator, a calculator that can create a target budget using ATN costs. And we use that as the means to share what a homeowner's projected target should be when getting ready for construction. And the good examples of a homeowner wants to create an addition, 800 square feet, we're able to go onto our calculator, punch those in, add the elements they're trying to add to it, maybe a 200 square foot lanai or deck, maybe they want to add a kitchen, a couple bathrooms. We add those elements in and it creates a target budget for them. And this is a great source and a value source for the architect to understand, what am I designing to? What am I going for? And if the price is a little bit high or a little bit low, the homeowners can make those adjustments and say, hey, maybe 750 square feet. What's my cost? We get to pump it in, put in those numbers, and then they're able to look, oh, okay, now it's kind of in my range. Maybe not 2 bathrooms, maybe I can just do 1. This is such a great advantage for homeowners to understand what they can get for their value amount before they start. And that's, I think, the biggest key, the answer that homeowners need before they start any design is understanding the cost.
No, that's an amazing advantage. And for you, Andrew, I mean, how are you with this system, with keeping the budget, on point, utilizing this system?
Sure. So in every project, when you start designing something, it starts pretty broad. It's a very 10,000 foot elevations design. So when people are starting at that point, they don't know how much things cost. But Richie and I do. So even at a very broad perspective, we can start people off by saying, okay, well, this type of area should be X amount per square foot. That area should be Y amount per square foot. And you can just look at, based on what their overall programmatic requirements are for their home, how much you should maybe budget for your project. So we'll do that at the very beginning. This is the very first meeting. You just met these people, but this is starting to open the lines of communication about things that are difficult to talk about sometimes, but are one of the most important things in an entire project. So we'll start off design at a 10,000 foot elevation. We'll start talking about budget at a 10,000 foot elevation. As we start to refine the design a little bit, we'll start to refine the budget. So instead of looking at it from a price per square foot basis, we can do it like Richie explained. We can start to do it by a room basis. Once we understand how many rooms we're going to have. So now our estimates are starting to get a little bit more accurate. As we gain more detail in the design, we can start to look at it by actual trade and by material. We can say, well, how much is our electrical work going to cost on this project? How much is our framing work going to cost on this project? And finally, once you're all done and you've got a very detailed design, your estimate is going to be equally as detailed. So it'll be line by line. You'll understand how much all of your construction costs, how much all of your labor costs, and then equally as important, how much all of those soft pre-construction costs are. So that includes your designing, any engineering that may happen, any of our city and county and permitting fees that will be included. So when you look at our project costs, it's talked about from beginning to end. It's inclusive of everything, and it works at a similar level of scale as the design does, working from macro to micro.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm sold completely on the design build process over the traditional way of doing things. But let's get into some fun stuff. I don't know how to read a blueprint. How do you enable your clients to actually visualize what you've designed for them? Andrew, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Sure. So to just sort of expand on the whole modern approach of how we do things, gone are the days of just looking at a two-dimensional floor plan that is really hard for people to understand. If you don't look at a floor plan all day, it's very likely you have no idea what you're looking at. So our modern process does away with the two-dimensional floor plans and turns everything into a three-dimensional model. So from the very first meeting, you will understand what your potential designs are going to look like in 3D. So it will still be loose in that first meeting, and it'll start to refine itself over the course of the design process. But where it's real loose in meeting number 1, it's equally as refined in meeting number 8. And then throughout the process of actually continuing to design into our permitting process, where we're starting to specify all of our materials, and you can easily manipulate your spaces, and you can see them in 3D through still renderings, through videos of the inside and the outside of the house. And you can quickly see, well, what would my kitchen look like in black and white, or with wood cabinets and natural stone countertops, or what would happen if my windows were black or my windows were white? Because these will have significant impacts on how your house obviously looks and how it feels, and oftentimes what it will cost. So these are all important decisions, and it's just another way to make it easy for the homeowner to understand what their home's going to look like and give them confidence in that design prior to ever contracting with a builder or ever submitting for permit or getting the house built for that matter. So.
And Richie, you were telling me about this. I mean, the visual and the renderings and being able to actually feel what the space will become. Can you just share a little bit more about that?
Yes. I love being able to continue that customer experience. So it starts with, the design, with Andrew being able to see things visually. But as the builder, we also have a virtual reality lounge in our downtown design center office in Nalama Kukui, where a homeowner could come into the lounge. We have a virtual reality set they could wear. Andrew provides a 360 rendering, and they could actually stand in the space and see what it feels like proportion, which is really cool. But even continuing that experience into the field during construction, we could take those renderings on our iPad, can zoom in really close and see what it's visually going to look like, and we're able to take that and communicate that to our builders and come up with really good decisions when it comes to the final finish of the product. We also provide a Matterport, kind of like a Google walkthrough of the home before and in the middle phase of the project that you always have access to. So once we close up the walls, you're able to see where everything was with your rough and plumbing, your rough and electrical, and you have access to it with a link on your phone. You can click and just walk through your home and have access to the before and afters. And that's great for the communication process for us as the builders as well, being able to communicate with the homeowner and continue that customer experience of the fun part.
No, it's absolutely the fun part. Of course, we are here in Hawaii. Are there any special conditions or quirks that make Hawaii a unique place to design or build? And Andrew, I'm going to throw this your direction first.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the reality is, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, if you are focused on a certain project type, like Blueprint 808 is on single family homes, then there's not a lot that surprises us anymore. So the reality is yeah, Hawaii is very unique compared to, say, the mainland or anywhere else across the world. But the houses here were all built primarily in the last 100 years. A lot of them were built by the same group of people using the same materials in the same manner. So once you become familiar with those, you pretty quickly understand that a lot of our houses are single wall and they're built out of redwood and they're above ground. They're not on a slab, and you can just approach them with those understandings. And we can educate the homeowners on what the good things about those are and what the bad things about those are, and that sometimes building right on top of your carport isn't as easy as it may sound. We will provide them all sorts of options, and just, again, further educating them on what their house is currently consisting of layout, systems, materials, and what it could potentially be. So a big part of it is, analysis at the beginning, the very beginning of the project, and identifying what works, and clearly identifying what doesn't and what we can improve.
And for you, Richie, as a builder, I mean, what are some of the unique things that you find here? What make it different to build here?
Just to kind of elaborate a little bit more, I had a homeowner one time tell me I have X-ray eyes as a builder. And as flattering as it was, it really was just the consistency of the way houses are built out here. There is a consistency, and after a while, you realize the way things are built and understanding when you lift the tub. Before the tub was even being demoed, I understood that the piping wouldn't be directly in the ground. It's going to come from the wall around where a beam would be, and be able to identify that even before a tub goes up. Of course, I can't identify everything, but I guess to elaborate that there is a consistency here, which is an advantage to us to understand the building part. In Hawaii as well, I mean, the views, the weather are great, unique differences from anywhere else in the world, which can really help in the design aspect of really catering to certain places in the home to really place your value because the view is there. Amazing views. If you don't have a view, the weather is an advantage. Thinking about, when you look at a home, you say, oh, it's 1,500 square feet on paper, but we can create and design and build space of the home space tied in with everything else. It could be a living square footage space, but it's outdoors, an outdoor dining, an outdoor kitchen. We have those advantages here with our weather. So that really places us in a unique place on the planet and gives us great opportunities to design and eventually have a lot of cost savings in that too. Because if you are not actually constructing siding, walls and drywall, but just a lanai covering, that's a lot of cost savings, but you're gaining the square footage space you can actually live in, and it could be part of the flow of the home, which is really cool.
No, it sounds like you have a pretty good handle on what you're going to run into. But as far as materials or design elements that you're seeing now that homeowners are requesting or that you're incorporating into design, Andrew, can you talk a little bit about what you've been seeing lately?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a blessing that actually this is a small island. So because it's so small, we all geographically have similar conditions, right? So, none of us are very far from the water. So as far as the materials that we use, we're always cognizant of those, especially for, doors and windows and things like that. As far as, our siding goes on the exterior of the house, I want to be very cognizant of where it's located. So, we use these same materials on a consistent basis. From an overall design standpoint, very much like Richie was explaining, capturing the elements, environmental elements here in Hawaii is important. And, I would just always suggest for a homeowner, they'll always start with putting together concept photos and sort of images that stimulate them and that they like. What I'll always recommend is, do this based on areas that are similar to Hawaii. So Hawaii is relatively young when it comes to any architectural history, I guess you could say, especially with single family homes. But look at, styles in California. They have a lot of similarities to us, especially the places by the water. Look at places in Australia. Australia's got some really cool architecture that has a similar sort of environment to us, is oftentimes by the water, sort of that beachy feel that people are sort of digging. So, I try to, steer people towards environments that are similar to Hawaii. And as far as the materials go, because we're a small island, we can use a lot of the same vendors, hence our pricing can get better. And we're just more and more educated and understanding of what the best products are for the homes specifically here. So we don't design in Colorado, we design here, and we know exactly what we need to build here.
How about you, Richie? What are you seeing? What are people asking you for?
I think the consistent material that I see throughout, it doesn't matter if it's a small home, small project, or a very luxurious project, I always see LVP pretty consistent across the board. And I think that's highly due to the quality and the appearance of the floor, but it has a very affordable cost of installation and of the product compared to like tiling a floor where it's high increase on price is the labor. There's a lot of labor involved in installing tile, but LVP, which is a luxurious vinyl plank flooring, has great textures, great color, durable, great for Hawaii, the moisture. I mean, you can have dogs, kids spill on this type of product and it looks great and it's affordable. I think no matter the size of the project, people are really gearing towards selecting this product as what I've seen as a consistency product that's being in most homes.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to ask one final question of you both. What is the number one piece of advice that you want to leave with the individuals who are viewing this today that want to build a home here? And we've talked a little bit about passion before, but what's your number one piece of advice for homeowners? And I'm going to start with you, Andrew.
Okay, so my number one piece of advice would be that you might not understand how to design your own home or how to build your own home. And most people, if they ever have an opportunity to do that, it's maybe once or twice in their entire life. So I always use the analogy that most people will go to the dentist or the doctor, you know, maybe once a year or maybe multiple times a year. So they clearly understand what the difference is between a dentist and what a doctor does. But most people that aren't designing or building houses, they don't know what the difference is between an architect or a draftsman or an interior designer or a subcontractor or a builder or a general contractor. And we don't expect you to know how to design your home. But one thing that I would expect and hope that people can do that are going to design and build a home is understand who these different people are that are involved. You know, if you know exactly what you're going to do and you don't need a lot of design work, you can go to one person. If you want somebody to design your home, manage your project, you'll go to another. So it's educating, educating themselves on who is going to be the right fit to work with. And then once they've done that, entrusting in those people to do it the right way. Get it done well, get it done in budget, and get it done on time.
How about you, Richie?
Yeah, for me, my advice I would give the homeowners is probably two-pronged. Do your research on contractors. It's a big heart behind our company that, you know, find out if they're licensed, they're insured, look at their work, get referrals, check online accountability, very important. You know, are they on Yelp or BBB and, you know, across the board, making sure that you're getting a quality contractor first. And then my next big advice before you start specifically even a design build process is determine your comfortable budget. Not something you have to share in the first meeting. As the builder and designer, we will share the cost, but to just determine behind the scenes, what is our comfortable budget? Knowing that and not get too excited to jump too far ahead of it, above it and beyond, or, you know, knowing that information before you set up that first meeting is very important. Knowing what is my comfortable budget as a homeowner, what I want to spend, and then dream up some ideas, you know, come up with some scope of work for us, a little bit of what you want to do, and we'll take care of the rest from there.
Mahalo to you both. Thank you all for watching Design Build Your Hawaii Home. We were grateful and are grateful to Andrew Foreman for joining us from Blueprint 808, as well as Richie Bro from All Things New. Thank you so much.